Let's start here.
Okay, so I don't know if you can see the presentation now. Yes, okay. So welcome everyone, bienvenidos, bienvenuti, and thank you, a very big thanks for being here. It's a real pleasure on behalf of all the ELLMEnet committee that you are interested in this new network. I'm Beatriz Cortina, and I will be in charge of introducing a little bit about this network, and I will give the floor to my colleague and the co-coordinator of the network, Mila Svarts, for them to conduct the webinar. This network is a really challenging and with lots of love and care put on it to be created. Actually, it was the desire of many people after the ELLMEnet and after the ELLME conference to not to stop that there and continue sharing ideas, continue creating the community that arose from those days in Granada and that has been, you know, constructed for a long time ago. So we want to continue growing, and with that desire, we started, or we thought it would be a good idea to start this new free and international network, ELLMEnet. Our rationale, or what's the focus of our network? It is mainly we are a network, and we want to really construct a community. So we have that idea of a caring community, a caring research and teacher education community behind the network. We are mainly focused on multilingualism at early childhood. So we want to really pay attention to the different processes, to the different methodologies, to the different agents that are involved in multilingualism in early childhood. And by early childhood, we understand from 0 to 7 up and down years old, because this depends a lot on the different countries, but all this period from birth until the starting of compulsory or primary education. Why is this? We really believe that early childhood education it's on its own a very relevant stage, and we really need to focus independently on this stage. Also, we would like to welcome any socio-linguistic context. Either we are talking about additional languages, heritage languages, second languages, mother tongues, any type of socio-linguistic context is welcome in this network. And also, we would like to focus not only in the educational context, but also in the home and family context. So as you can see, the rationale behind this network is really international and inclusive. What are our targets? Well, basically, to encourage research around very early multilingual education, to provide online spaces to debate across the world, to cover issues concerning research and teacher education from this inclusive perspective that I was describing before, to encourage policies and practices that promote justice, inclusion, and social cohesion, and to fill in an existing gap in the on early childhood multilingual family and school context. Okay, so this is basically where we would like to move, and where we would like to all of you to share your experiences, your research, your knowledge, so that you really feel you are not alone and you are within a community. And within this community, okay, We have constructed this network from the free and work of many people, and this is part of the team that we have created. You will know all of them in the different webinars that we will be producing. And also we have a community, and in these 10 days it's so amazing that we already have 175 people who has registered in ELLMEnet, and they are, as you can see, from different parts of the world. So we are really excited and pleased about this. If you are in this webinar just by chance and you would like to join us, we will give you the link, or you can get that QR code so that you can fill in the online form. It is free, and you just need to write your details and we will contact you. What are our plans or our so far? We would like to have 3 webinars per year. One focus a little bit more on research, another one more focused on practitioners' experiences, and another one a little bit more oriented towards PhD students, because we have different profiles in the different members that we have. We plan to have one face-to-face biannual conference. This is something we still need to be discussing, but very surely we will have in 2024, next year, we will have another conference in Granada, so that we reinforce this ELLMEnet community, although I hope that it will travel into the different places in the near future. We plan to have joint publications, and we also plan to have joint projects through different calls. And of course, you can contact us. We are a community, so this would not have any sense at all if we don't create this community. So please come to us if you need help in any research you're doing, if you need people to work with you in any field, and we will put you into contact with the different people that may be interested in. So thank you very much, and hope you can forward this information to different people that may be interested. And now I give you the floor, to my colleague and co-chair of this network, Mila.
Good evening. Thank you, dear Bia, and thank you for all the presenters and all participants. Добрый вечер, shalom. We are very grateful for your participation, and today it's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speakers, who are also our experts from different parts of the world. And these experts are invited to talk about what does it mean early multilingual education. How can we conceptualize this research domain? And what does it mean future of early multilingual education? After this discussion, we will open discussion for all of you, for asking questions, for your suggestions, your proposals, and you can also write your ideas during these presentations by means of chat. We will ask our secretary, Sujud, dear Sujud Hijade, to write down your suggestions and your questions, your comments, and we will summarize them and we'll address them later. So our first presenter, and I'm very thrilled to present our first presenter, Professor Ofelia Garcia, is a professor emerita in the domain of Latin America context and urban education at the Graduate Center, University of New York, CUNY. She is best known for her work on bilingualism, translanguaging, language policy, socio-linguistics and sociology of language. And she has her emphasis on dynamic multilingualism, and we are happy to hear her video recording today. Bea, can you share? Would you like me to share? Okay, just a moment. So welcome, dear Ofelia Garcia. Just a moment. Just a moment. I need to fix. Just a moment. One moment.
Estoy con esto ahora. Justo me he apuntado a una charla de estas.
One moment. Can you see? Can you hear? Just let me know. Oh.
Hello, everybody.
Can you hear? Just let me know.
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, perfect.
I'm so sorry I can't be with you in person today, but I did not want to miss this opportunity to really congratulate the network, the team that has started the Early Language Learning Multilingual Education Network, and in particular, Beatriz Cortina Perez and Milas Schwartz, and the rest of the team. And I've been asked to very briefly tell you a little bit about my interest in early multilingual education, what it means to me, and why it's important. I think that looking at early childhood multilingual education is very important because some understandings are completely transformed when we think about little children first. One is the idea of what is bilingual development. Bilingual development for young children is completely different from what we think about what happens when schools develop bilingualism for older children. In a lot of ways, all of this development is simultaneous. It is not sequential. It also is very tied to practices in the family. And it's a family that becomes important, not the educational institution. And I think in those ways, it also transforms the ways in which we think about language development. Language development is transformed with little children because we know when we listen to them and when we see them in action that they're not only using what we would call the linguistic, but they're using all their multimodal repertoire, they're painting, they're acting, they're gesturing, and so we learn a lot from looking at their language behavior. And maybe the last reason why I think it's important to me is because it also transforms our notion of what teaching and assessment are. Because to teach multilingually very young children, you have to make sure that you leverage and develop the language practices that they bring from home, including, of course, those in their home language that they're still developing. And also assessment is transformed because, as we all know, young children cannot be assessed linguistically by simply giving them tests, but we have to really observe them in action, observe their behavior. I've been also asked to think of what the future might hold and where research should focus. I think that early childhood multilingual education is very important because it's spreading throughout the world, and sometimes it's just not adequate. It's been used to teach English in ways that are not what young children really need, as I said before. So I think that there has to be a transformation, not only in the practices of what happens in early childhood education, but also in the research that we do with them. To follow the order in which I gave you before the transformations, one thing for the future, for future research, is that early childhood classrooms, multilingual classrooms, open up for us a world to understand bilingualism as what has been called the first language, that is, to understand the simultaneous growth of language practices and to understand their dynamic context. I think we also learn when we watch little children in educational settings that learning and language development is incidental, it's natural. It cannot be taught, it cannot have a strict curriculum, strict timetables. It has to emerge from the children. And thirdly, I think a very important area of research in the future would be the training of educators for us early childhood educators. Early childhood educators are more than teachers. They become partners, family members. They emulate and they care for children as if they were parents. So in that sense, multilingual early childhood is extremely important, and I welcome this opportunity given to all of us by Beatriz Cortina Perez, Mila Schwartz, and the rest of the team of this network in the work that they will be doing. Gracias.
Gracias, gracias, Ophelia. And we will continue to our next expert, next presenter, also video typed presentation and participation of our expert in the Asian context, East Asian context, Professor Yuko Butler. Yuko Goto Butler is professor of educational linguistics at the Graduate School of Education at the University of Pennsylvania. She is also the director of the Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages program at Penn. Her research primarily focuses on the improvement of second or foreign language education among young learners in the United States and Asia in response to the diverse needs of increasing globalization. So welcome, Professor Yuko Butler, and sorry for 1 second. Okay, just let me know if you can hear. So.
Hi, my name is Yuko Butler from University of Pennsylvania. I'm sorry that I couldn't participate in the webinar today, but I really do appreciate this opportunity to record myself. So I am primarily working with educators in East Asia. So I am going to respond to the 2 questions that I was given from the perspective of East Asia. So in East Asia, unfortunately, the general public, including teachers, have not really paid a sufficient attention to the cultural diversity or linguistic diversity. So people tend to think that their societies and nations are
Sorry, Mila, it seems it's not working. Do you want me to play it?
People are interested in
No.
acquiring English, the language of power, as early as possible. So I believe that the direction that we should be taking or heading for is to start viewing early multilingual education is an opportunity for children to be exposed to different languages and culture. so they can develop intercultural competencies or awareness. So that will lead to my second question. In your opinion, what's the future of early multilingual education research? Of course, and there are many directions that people can take, but one of the important directions, as far as I see, is to understand how to foster children's intercultural awareness or competency through early multilingual education. So one of the research projects that I'm currently working on is to develop multimodal story-based material for Asian children. They don't have to be Asian children, but we, as a first step, we decided to focus on Asian children because the original motivation for this project was that I learned that primary school teachers in East Asia often have a hard time finding a good material in English for their children. Of course, and there are, wonderful picture books in English, but many of them are, based in the West. So the teachers in East Asia are having a hard time to find a good reading material in English for their children, culturally appropriate for their children and that are close to their daily lives so that, children can be more interested in the stories. And then at the same time, we are interested in developing, we definitely need more material to better understand the languages and cultures in the neighboring Asian countries. We tend to know a lot more about cultures and languages in the West, but not in the neighboring countries. And so that's our motivation. So this is a collection of stories from Asia, and then it's multilingual and multimodal. So stories are written in the local language and then also English. Since this is digital, so children can also listen to the stories in the local language and localized English. So the recordings colleges. So children can be exposed to a variety of Englishes as well. And in addition, the pictures are drawn by local children. So children are pretty much involved in the process of developing this digital material. And then we are very interested in understanding how children make use of digital technology, such as machine translation, to understand and then appreciate multilingual material, and then have a discussion on interculture issues. So we also plan to ask children in different countries to draw pictures for a story that is their own, so they can make their own version of the story, and then they can compare with the original version and so forth. But in any event, my primary interest to early multilingual education at this point is that how to understand how children developed multicultural competence and then awareness, and then how teachers can assist the process. So I think I'm going to stop here, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person sometime soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Yuko, and we will continue to our next presenter, expert, Anna Maria Pinto. She's almost physically with us. So Anna Maria, I'm going to present you briefly, just a moment, you're here. Professor Anna Maria Pinto works at the University of Warwick, England. She's interested in second foreign language acquisition, learning for children of all ages. Her research interest is also in language learning processes in both formal and informal contexts, task-based learning, and developing language learning materials for children. She's also interested in inclusive participatory research with children, which includes working with children as active co-researchers, very actual topic when we focus on child's language-based agency. So, Anna Maria, it's your stage to address our 2 questions, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope everyone can hear me. Can you all hear me okay? There seems to be a bit of an echo sometimes. So I really don't want to take over as host, but perhaps I can see some people haven't switched their mics off, so maybe that might help a little bit. So thank you so much. Thanks for, first of all, for inviting me. I'm very much honored to be part of this network. And I have prepared a few thoughts, but I guess I have to start by saying that multilingualism is not actually my expertise. And also all my work with children has been not with early years, but with slightly older children. Having said that, of course, I've got a huge interest in younger children as well. And I'm hopefully going to be able to contribute one way or another over the years. So I think you also assigned me the European perspective, which is, again, very generous. I have some knowledge of European countries and practices, but of course it's quite patchy. My knowledge is quite patchy, but we're lucky in Europe because in North America and in Europe, I guess, the 2 places where most research has been done with multilingual learners. Other parts of the world probably are a little bit behind and need more research. And this formal research has extended not just to primary schools, but preschools and kindergartens as well. So we all know that CLEAR programs that take in children with different language backgrounds and promote the plurilingual European policy are very popular in many countries in Europe. So I know about programs in Poland, in Spain, of course, and Germany and Romania and a lot of other places. But of course, the typical criticism of the programs that they're a little bit elitist. Not all children are able to join these programs, and usually lower socioeconomic background children suffer and they can't join the programs. And new arrivals, immigrant children are often excluded as well. So minority languages in these programs don't enjoy perhaps the same status as other European languages that have a perceived higher status. And of course, we've got such amazing variety of learners because of the constant movement of families. So for example, I myself came across children whose first language was Arabic, and then they spent a little bit of time in the Netherlands learning various languages. Then they moved to Italy and they ended up in Germany. And of course, in Germany, they would be focusing on German as well as English, where English would be taught as a first foreign language. So you kind of, you can only be amazed at what these children are able to quite naturally absorb and cope with. But I also come across examples in the UK. For example, one of my PhD students has looked at young Sudanese children's experiences in year 1 in primary schools, and teachers very much consider using Arabic as swearing. You're not allowed to use Arabic, certainly not in the classroom, but also not in the playground. So this sort of kind of resistance to children's languages is still very much a reality in a lot of schools. Of course, good examples exist as well. I was recently introduced to a school in Ireland where, through the work of Professor David Little and his colleague, who was actually the head teacher of this school, where they proactively promote multilingualism. So children will always produce their work in all the languages they know. So we've seen examples of children producing their work in English, Irish, French, and Chinese all at the same time. They might be little paragraphs or a little story told just in a couple of sentences. It doesn't need to be written work, so that's how it's applicable to early years as well. But this kind of proactive, constant affirmation of all the languages that the children know. And this leads to, of course, contentious motivation. If I'm a young child who sees somebody else can do it in 4 languages, then suddenly I perk up and think, well, maybe I can work on my different languages as well. And it has given a boost to Irish as well, which has always been a language to the locals that they found difficult to motivate themselves to learn. So what's missing and what's the future? I guess we need more research in all areas, but in particular in informal context, because we know that children learn a lot from each other. They help each other. They learn a lot from siblings. They learn a lot in families if the different languages are used in the home context. And recently we just finished a project here about gaming and young learners, and our youngest participant was 8 years old. So not really, again, highly relevant perhaps for early years, but we know from anecdotal evidence from these children that 8-year-olds, for example, show their siblings how to play games in English online, and they do play together, and even 4-, 5-, 6-year-old children interact with tablet devices and use various games. Now, our original project looked at English as a second language, but what we discovered is that almost everywhere children mix languages and use a whole lot of different languages. For example, in Chile, they use English because the game is in English, but the console is in Portuguese because it comes from Brazil. So the children actually seamlessly use English, Portuguese, and of course their mother tongue, which is Spanish. And we've got a whole sets of transcribed data that show that they can just come in and out of these languages as young as 8 years old. And finally, I would like to perhaps just finish with a thought about my favorite early years educational approach, which is related to the Reggio Emilia approach, which those of you who are early years specialists will know this approach much better than I do. But what struck me was the phrase of the 100 languages of children. And in the books that I have read about the Reggio Emilia approach, it seems to me that this phrase means the very different ways, creative ways, children can communicate with each other. So it is maybe through verbal interaction, using language, or it may be through photos, or it may be through drawings, or it may be through sound and music and gestures. And they consider that the teacher's very important responsibility is to encourage different ways of trying to communicate with each other. And I think the more varied the children are, the more varied the approaches need to be to work with them. And I think this really fits well with the multilingual early years classroom approach as well, because the more languages, the more backgrounds you have in your classroom. The teacher needs to think about more varied approaches to reach everyone and to include everyone and to make sure everyone gets a chance to use all their languages and to communicate with each other and also with the teacher. So I think that's really all I wanted to say. I'm pretty sure I've taken more than 5 minutes. So thank you again very much for inviting me. And I look forward to working with everyone in this group.
Thank you, Anna Maria. And we have our last presenter, not last presenter, almost last presenter today, Dr. Dario Banegas. From the Latin American context, we would like to have all continents with us. So it's our pleasure to have you today almost physically on our Zoom meeting, and Dario will address Latin education in South America. He comes from the University of Edinburgh now. His research has particularly examined language learning and teaching in South American context. You also carried out work in the area of content and language integrated learning, CLIL, and teaching preparation in Argentina. So please, Dario, it's your time to discuss our questions.
Thank you, Mila, and thank you very much for the invite. And it's a great pleasure to be part of this network. And it's also a pleasure to be sharing this panel with Ana Maria Pinta. Ana Maria was my supervisor at Warwick when I was doing my master's degree there. So yeah, it's lovely. Anyways, so let me tell you a little bit about South America. And again, my research does not look into early years per se, but I always, do a bit of review or talk to teachers mainly in different Latin American settings. And what I understand is that when in Latin America, or maybe South America in my case, because I'm more familiarized with that kind of region, when we talk about early multilingual education, we envisage it, or we understand that concept in terms of enabling learners to develop a multilingual identity when they are, for example, in kindergarten. And in this case, it may refer primarily to private education or private schooling, because kindergarten may not include the teaching of other languages in the state sector. Or we could think about language centers or institutes, as they are usually called, or maybe in some cases, primary education. But when I talk about, for example, like year 1 or between year 1 and year 3 in primary education, work is either with, for example, English, and usually in private primary education, or with heritage or indigenous languages. So, for example, there's state-run bilingual school in Patagonia, in the province of Chubut, and the languages are Mapudungun, that's an indigenous language, and Spanish. And they do include English, but as from the age of 10, that's roughly when the kids are in year 4. And in the private sector, there's one lovely school in Esquel, again in Chubut, and this is a trilingual school, well, multilingual school, because they do Welsh, which is a heritage language in that part of the country, in Argentina, Welsh, Spanish, and English. And again, when we look at what's going on, usually in practice, because there's not, unfortunately, much research in English, but there's more, of course, in Spanish, which is absolutely fine. Not all knowledge has to be in English. So with multilingual education comes like play-based or inquiry-based learning. You also find practices connected to developing an intercultural and multilingual attitude. And in the case of South America, intercultural citizenship and now perhaps active citizenship tend to dominate the agenda in tandem with storytelling and literature. There's a lot of work and there's a long tradition in South America connected to storytelling and literature. And this happens a lot in particular, for example, in those contexts where multilingual education with very young learners happen in contexts where indigenous languages are only oral. And we could think about northern Argentina and Chile and Ecuador and Mexico, as far as I know, but again, I'm not quite knowledgeable about that part of the Americas. And when I think about what's going on, and when I think about what the future holds, maybe we might want to pay further attention to multilingual socialization. So talking about multilingualism as a socio-linguistic phenomenon outside formal education, but at the same time, how both of them, interact. That's my 5 minutes. And we could do more exploration into funds of identity and funds of knowledge, particularly when multilingual education entails heritage languages. And when we think about funds of identity and funds of knowledge, Julie Waddington is carrying out lovely work in that area, not in Latin America for now, but maybe in the future, who knows? And then maybe we might want to have more research and more knowledge about what happens in practice in terms of social and cognitive perspectives, sustainability and inclusion, and how multilingual education with very young learners tap into equity or taps into social justice and even less formal settings, or for example, even with very young learners, cases of online learning. So that's all from me for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daria, and thank you for joining our meeting today. So we have not one expert from the Australian context. Dr. Susanna Eisenhlas sends her regards. She got COVID, unfortunately, and we all wish her soon and full recovery. So I'm the last person, not from East Asian context, not from Middle East.
Okay,
Yeah.
So I will now take this some seconds to very briefly introduce Professor Mila Svarsh. She is professor in language and education and head of the research authority in Oronim Academic College of Education in Haifa, Israel. Her research interests include studying language policies and models of early bilingual education. She is very, very much involved into the ecological perspective of multilingual early childhood education. And she is such an expertise on the field, not only for her research, from which we have all learned, especially the handbook of early language learning, but also because she's a multilingual person on her own since she was very young, and also her family is a multilingual family, so she has a complete multilingual experience, both professionally and personally. So it's my pleasure to give the floor to Professor Mila Svarsh.
Thank you so much, Bea. It's too much for today. Pleasure. So thank you so much. Indeed, I'm a native Russian speaker and also native Hebrew speaker, and I speak Italian. I struggle to learn Spanish now. And have some knowledge in Arabic as well. So I'm very happy to be with you today. And just briefly to present my agenda, my vision of early language education, early multilingual education. So very briefly, my point is that first of all, early multilingual education can't be addressed without intersection with early childhood education and care. Child does not develop within a vacuum. He develops within a environmental context, diverse environmental context, and we can't think only about multilingual education without taking perspective of early childhood education and care. So the main target of the early childhood education and care in the Western culture, and not only in the Western culture, is the child's well-being and child's developmental growth and harmonic developmental growth. So we can't reproach early multilingual education as a separate research domain, and my claim is it should be part of wider umbrella of ecology of early childhood development. So it's first point and very important point for me as a researcher. Second point that I would like to stress that for me, early multilingual education is first of all diversity of contexts. Dario, you just stressed that we can't only focus on English as a second language, as a foreign language. So we need to start open our minds to wider perspective and not only English centralized research, because it's overwhelming research now today, but we have other contexts that actually scream for engagement, for research, for policy making, and for practical field application. I'm talking about home-based education, mainstream context with language awareness programs, linguistically culturally responsive teaching that Professor Hanna Rogna's daughter, who is with us today, focus on heritage languages, endangered languages, additional languages, foreign languages. We thought about them. So for me, multilingual education is an umbrella that includes diversity of contexts. And all this diversity we need to address and not to ignore them. In particular, I think that other research domains are indigenous languages and endangered languages in different parts of the world, and also mainstream educational context with full engagement of multilingual, multicultural children in different parts of the world. So if we're talking about early multilingual education, I think we need to address early language education policy, preparing teachers and teacher assistants for early education, ecological perspectives in early education. And if we're talking about ecological perspectives in early language education, we can't focus only on one piece of the puzzle. So home, school, and community together make up pieces in the jigsaw of children's lives. Children are constantly uniting these pieces in the language learning, but how far do we recognize this? So our focus on child's language-based agency and on ethics also issues in child approaching research with children that Mayra, who is with us also today, focuses on is very important. And we can't observe child as a separate unit. We need to observe child with his connections with neighborhood, peers, family, school, and to focus on such model as Bronfeld-Brenner's model of early childhood development, and to keep in mind as researchers, as policymakers, as practitioners, as agents who can influence, who can have impact that child's in development with an individual level is connected to microsystem in language, peers, family members, family language policy. Classroom educational policy is connected to mesosystem, how classroom language education policy is related to family language policy, is there interchange, interconnection, intersection between these policies, and how mesosystem is related to exosystem, to community language policy, to area district language policy, and finally, how national state language education policy impacts child through classroom language policy and family language policy. So, in my opinion, we need to focus in the future as the researchers, as the policymakers, as educators. We need to focus on interaction and of all these stakeholders, and to observe and to investigate their viewpoints. And also, it's important to look at social emotional learning, how social emotional learning and cognitive development is related to multilingual education in early childhood. And we need to focus on child's language-based agency, how it develops and how it is influenced by ecology of child's development, general development. And we need to focus on our professionals, on teachers and teacher assistants. So thank you so much. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Professor Svart. I think it's now time to give the floor to any of the people who is in this webinar. We would like to hear all of you because we need to strengthen and to use that we all come from different parts of the world, and that's so enriching. So do not hesitate to share your experience, your idea around these two questions that we have. Our experts have been debating just for some minutes. So if anyone would like to start, please raise your hand and we can create a queue, and we would like to hear all of you. So
it is your time to discuss, to ask, to comment, to suggest also, because we are young developing a network. We are very young by ourselves, and and we also deal with young ages. So you are welcome to suggest, to comment, please.
okay, so if in the meanwhile, I will do some comments. We already have someone who raised their hand.
Lana,
Yes,
from
Lana,
Cyprus, you're welcome.
you're very
All right.
welcome.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues. And I would like, first of all, I don't have a particular question, but I would like to congratulate you for this great initiative and for this first event launched with such an interesting presentation of all dear colleagues from different contexts and from different continents. And I think that it was, having this network with different colleagues and different experts and professionals in the area. This makes your network as an asset, because I mean, a lot of collaborators can work together on the general topic, but then fill in a particular niche, because we have heard today about various interesting directions. And I think that Mila has summarized it in a very nice way. But each contributor today, each presenter showed different perspectives in their context, in their continent, but also trying to unite together. I think that, I mean, first of all, once again, congrats, right? And we have heard today about multilingualism, about early language learning, about equity, diversity, equality, about social justice, teachers' education, and many, many other topics. So thank you very much. I'm really, really excited and to be a member of this network, and looking forward to further collaboration and presentations and doing research together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to hear you, and we would really love to also to know a little bit more about your contacts, if you would like to, or if anyone is interested in taking the floor now. Anyone? I would just like to summarize a little bit some of the ideas that has popped out, during the different talks. For me, it has been so interesting to hear experts, even though they say some of them, I'm not an expert, I'm sure they are experts on the field, really, and they have an experience. So how, from different perspectives, you know, at the very end, we try to care about children, and in really taking care about the well-being of the child, we need to rethink about pedagogies that goes beyond the school, because we know that raising children is not just the school. It has to do with the family, with the community, and all these agencies that we need to take into account. That was highlighted. For me, it was also very important, Ana Maria Pinter's point, when she stressed that we need to break elitism. And this is something mainly from the European context that we need to work with. We need to, because and this is, I think it's starting to be done. I don't want to say we are not doing it, but I think it is starting to be done, at least from my experience in Spain. We are really spreading multilingual education in public schools all over Spain. And so these are things that needs to be highlighted as well. And I'm sure also in other contexts. I'm sorry, Kirsten, I have got you in the middle of the of my screen. So I know you also work with that. So maybe you want to take the floor after me. So this is important. And I think that this is my personal point of view as a researcher on the area. There is an importance to focus on teacher education, because so far many of the teachers that has been involved in raising multilingual children in schools are not really trained on multilingual pedagogies. Or in my context, where I research on foreign languages or additional languages, they are just teachers who come from all the trainings on primary education on elder children, but they has nothing to know about such small children who are completely different. So these are things that we need to take into consideration, and we need to, maybe in the future, to really develop that early childhood multilingual teacher or educator, which will be the ideal. And I'm so happy people is starting to raise. So maybe Roberta, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure to be here. So thank you. I was waiting for today. And so today I think that we have touched many important aspects of multilingualism. For me, so I'm from Italy, I'm from Venice. I think that one of the most interesting aspects was talking about a sort of shared awareness. So sort of net, the importance of building a net with families, with teachers, and with children, of course, but also with the colleagues. So as a teacher, I think that it's fundamental to have a good education, a good preparation that we generally don't have. So we have to study on our own. And it's very hard because sometimes you, for example, out of the university, you start working, you don't have any base. So you have a lack of preparation on pedagogy, psychology, and also linguistics in my case. So you are like a sort of freelance on your own, but this is absolutely wrong because you're working with children and also early education is very delicate. So absolutely agree. And in Italy is the same. For example, me, out of the university, I have to study a lot on my own. And now fortunately we have a net like ELLMEnet here, so we can share and grow. And so just this, so thank you very much, because I think that today we will bring a lot of points of reflections each other. Thank you so much.
Bia, not you.
Oh yeah, no, I was going to say there is another bear who raised physically her hand. So Would you like to introduce yourself, because we only have Bea on the screen, so.
And then Maria Bobadilla. After that, yeah, okay.
Bobadilla, difficult to
Bobadilla.
pronounce.
Excuse me.
I don't know who's speaking now, Bea, probably, no?
It was Bea who raised
Bea,
hand.
you are
Yeah,
second.
can you, yes, yes.
Start and then Maria.
Yes, it's me. It's my turn.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's great. This is incredible for me because I'm a researcher, not so new in this area, but I have a child of 9, and so I'm so interested in this area since he started to study English, because I started my first PhD a lot of years ago, and now I'm so interested in doing another one in how children learn a new language, because as I can observe my child, I find so many problems, difficulties. What we have been talking about, the problems of we have no base, and teachers have no knowledge of how to teach English to young learners. So I want to put on the table something quite difficult for me. I'm from Spain and I'm from Galicia, and I live in an area in which we share multilingual classroom with a native language Spanish, with a mother tongue which is Galician, and third we have English. And most of the times when I go to the classrooms, and I work in public schools, so I think it's so important for me this, because it's what we have been talking about, the problems that so many people have to acquire the possibility to find programs for themselves who are easy to take an approach. So I want to work in public schools because I think they need tools to work, teachers, and to show children how to learn and to have feedback, because I think teachers are so lost. They are so frustrated a lot of times, not because they don't want to learn, they don't want to improve their knowledge of how to learn English or another language, but they don't have the tools to do it. So I'm so interested in this. And I have heard everything about this. And in Galicia, for example, they are so worried about how we mix this context of multilingual experience. They try to separate a lot, Galician, Spanish, and English. And I want you to hear what do you think about this mixture in this mixture context in a class? It should be only English. It should be only Galician. We should talk only Spanish and translate everything in English. We should use only English. Continuously, I find in different classrooms this problem. The teacher has one of the problems they have is this. And I want you, all of you, that you are so competitive in this and so conscious of this, to give your impression about this. Now you are teaching, you're moving in a different context, in a different countries. What do you think about this problem we have in Galicia of trying to separate this multilingual classroom? No, don't speak Galician, don't speak Spanish. We speak only English. In another classroom, you find, no, we are going to use Galician and English. What happened with this? What do you think? Thank you.
Dear Bea, we'll address these issues. First of all, we have some literature about Galician language and revitalization of Galician language. We published 2018 chapter about this initiatives, parental initiative to revitalize and to maintain Galician language. So we are going, all our team, Julie, Bea, Sujud, Anna, Isaac, we all going to construct literature pool based on diverse topics. And if you are interested in some domains and you are looking for research-based data, classroom observations and etc., instructional strategies and etc., you can write your questions, and we will collect these questions, and we will ask Sujud and Anna to address them as soon as possible. So we will also direct you to some literature that we know, but our target also to create new data and to connect between us as a network in different domains. So we will suggest you some literature to read, and maybe we'll focus one day on contexts like Galician, like Basque Republic, and etc., where 3 languages are so urgent and so attractive, and we will discuss it, okay?
Thank you
So
so much.
now we will ask you to raise hand. We have here reactions button.
Maria
Bobadilla.
I just don't know. I'm sorry. I just don't know how to raise a hand here with the.
It's okay. It's okay, Maria.
Hopefully
It's
I'm speaking
okay.
here. First of all, I want to congratulate you on the idea of creating this network. I was so much looking forward to it, right? Because I always think that, early childhood education in language learning is the forgotten subject that we have. It's one of the forgotten subjects we have in education. I'm from Galicia, Bea, from Coruña, and I have published something a little bit about that. I have been working. A student of mine did a PhD dissertation on early. I'm actually supervising 2 PhDs precisely on that, on early language learning in the Galician context. What about plurilingualism in our context, right? How to deal with how to balance, right, the very necessary introduction or strengthening of Galician together with foreign languages, right? I have high hopes with the new decree on plurilingualism, although I have some fears regarding the new politics, right? Edulingüe 2020, which included plurinfantil, and even Edulingüe 2030, which, it's kind of strengthening that. But there's still so, much work to do with these regards, with early language learning in multilingual contexts. So I am very, very happy that you have all of you created with this network, because there's here space for discussion with everything that we are worried about. I was yesterday actually with a student of mine. She's doing a final thesis, master's dissertation, right? And we were looking for references for CLIL in the early language classroom. What is the question? What is CLIL in the early childhood? What is?
Sorry,
I mean, you
sorry
find
to
plenty of
interrupt you.
resources.
Yeah, it's going to be very soon out, a book on that. So
Okay,
we
so
spread the word about
a
that.
student of mine, I don't know.
Yeah.
Should you let us know? I've been working on that as well. So it's great that there's a discussion about that, right? Very not enough research on that. And it's easy to identify the different areas in primary education, but what about in early childhood, where you have a globalized learning environment for languages? It's difficult, and it's difficult to guide the students, to provide them with research, right, that they can base their studies on. So I'm happy and looking forward to it. Very much looking forward to it, and in the future I think needs to be something there work with plurilingual, with the bilingual communities, how to deal with that as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that this is the good point about this network, that we will have many things in common, and we will be able to share. We are the executive team. We are discussing how to manage this physically, but we would like that you have the opportunity to share publications, projects, and so on. And that's the good point. So Kirsten, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello, I'm Kirsten. Let's see if I can take that down again. Yes. Yes, I've been working in multilingual kindergartens, and a project that I had, which was my PhD, was teaching the kindergarten teachers to teach English to the children. And there's a new dimension that comes into it for me. And the reason why the very first reason for my research was because it's not just the teachers who need to go into a classroom or multilingual classroom to teach English, but especially in preschool or pre-primary, the most valuable teachers here are the actual teachers that are in the kindergarten, who are in the routine, who are teaching from 8 o'clock until 1 o'clock or through the afternoon. And it's sad or unfortunate that a lot of these teachers have, or in Austria or in my area, have the attitude that through multilingualism and through learning German, the children shouldn't be introduced to any English at all. And I think to help change this, or in order for this attitude to be changed, the teachers need to have the experience of seeing how English is taught and how the children absorb the English, because their opinions are very much based on their experiential knowledge. So the only way to but the only way to help or open up their minds to having English also introduced can only be done if they have the experiential knowledge of teaching English, and not only the experiential knowledge of teaching German as a second language to go by. And in my research, I really noticed that it's so important to bring it into the classroom. Not only, as we all know, it's important for the practical part and to go into classroom and teach if you're learning to become a teacher, but it's also very much, especially in these younger years in preschool, to show from an expert how English can actually be taught and how the children can absorb English. And in the project that I did, the teachers were completely, not completely against it, but very, very reluctant to bring in English, and corrective for anybody who thought they could bring in English. And by the end of the project, they were all enthusiastic to teach the English. So often I think we are dealing with not just starting on the starting point of that point to teach the English, but we're actually behind the starting point. And some preschool teachers, we need to bring to the point where they want to start to teach English, or feel like the children can learn more languages while they're learning these languages. I think there's before, when we're talking about simultaneously learning and not the linear learning, is so important. And I think there are still quite a few preschool teachers who feel like simultaneous learning is only confusing for the children. And this is something that needs to be not only researched, but somehow be brought into the kindergartens so that they can have this experiential knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. Yes, as we can see, we have so many different contexts, so many different experiences, and this is why this network is so important, because we have the floor to share these ideas and then start collaborating. Maybe someone else would like to address any other point. I have Janet around, and for us, it would be a pleasure if you would like to comment on any point, Janet.
Okay, just very briefly, I wanted to go back to, and thank you very much for giving me this floor space. I wanted to go back to Bea's comment about how to manage the situation in Galicia, I think it was, where there might be 3 different languages operating within the community. I feel that this is very much a policy issue here, and we're talking really about language status, therefore, and therefore the barriers to allowing this mix to happen within the classroom is very challenging for many sections of the community. If I sort of switch to the Indian context, which I'm fairly familiar with, having gone into lots of kindergartens there, because of the particular history of many languages in India, it's natural and normal for everyone in the society to move in and out of different languages within the same utterance, because this is what they've always done. There isn't a sense of, what shall I say, a high wall between each language. The wall is much lower between the languages, and the acceptance within society to do that, under certain circumstances, when appropriate, is quite okay. But I can say, when we look at the history of language policy in Europe, there's been a sense of identifying one group with one language in order to create boundaries between the different languages. And I think we're still having to deal with that in Europe, and no doubt in many other contexts as well. So it's really challenging to really sort of question the appropriacy of this when different sectors of the community have a strong investment in one particular language variety. How you overcome that in the kindergarten context is still a major research question, but I certainly agree that it must be highly desirable for the maintenance and development of all those languages and for the acknowledgement of their equal status, which is what I would like to see ultimately. Anyway, just some thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a, interesting issue that you raised, actually, because as also Professor Svart was saying on her talk, language policy at the very end has everything to say, into the different contexts, as Andreas was suggesting that here in Spain, we do have that division of languages and how to deal with that, And so any other person who would like to share or comment anything?
May I suggest that, Julie, maybe you will talk a bit about the PhD context and webinars that we are planning, maybe it's a stage now, a time now to invite PhD students to write us. Can you talk about it a bit, Julie?
We cannot hear you, Julie.
Hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay.
And present yourself.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Julie Waddington. Delighted to be a member of this the board, the board of this network, and delighted to see so many members. Very surprised to see how much the membership has grown in such a short time, and delighted to see so many people here today. Thank you so much for to all the speakers. It's been wonderful listening to so many different contexts and the connections between the speakers who've quite clearly not planned to, they've not talked to each other, but there were so many connections that were fascinating between them, and I think the word connections is particularly important here. The connections between us as researchers, the connections that are crucial in childhood education. And I think everybody talked about this in some way, the holistic approach and how essential that is, whether we're talking about the connections in children's lives, or whether we're talking about the kind of ecological perspective that Mila talked about, the funds of knowledge approach that Dario also talked about. So yeah, it's been fascinating to listen to. But as Mila said, we are planning to have different webinars with different focuses, and as Bea mentioned at the very beginning. And what we would like to do is to focus on different agents, let's say. One of them would be sharing work carried out by any PhD students that are already part of the network, that have become members of the network, let's say. So what we need to do, I think this is our next step, is to decide exactly what the program of those webinars will be, because we have one on PhD students, one also on practitioners. Very, very interested to hear what practitioners have to say to us, because we're, I think, mostly here today talking from a research-based perspective, but we're really interested to hear what the practitioners say. Some of these questions we're talking about, the need for more teacher education, more professional development. What do actual practitioners tell us that they need? And I'm not sure if that might be our next webinar. We're about to conclude the initial plans that we have here. So once we've decided that, we'll get that information out to everybody, but that might possibly be the next one, the practitioner-based one. And then when it comes to the PhD research, the PhD webinar, then we'll work out exactly how to probably send an invitation for PhD students to propose different topics that they'd like to work on, and we'll work out how we can manage that so we have as many participants as possible in this kind of format. Okay, and we also have other webinars planned, but I won't go into that yet. As you can see, there are many ideas, but it all needs to be managed step by step. But I think it's after today, I think it's working. So thank you and congratulations to those who've been the main part of this today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie, for this. I think it is we are close to the time of closing this first webinar. We've on behalf of all the team, we first would like to say thank you with very big letters to all of you, and a very big applause to all of you and to our experts, because it has been a pleasure having you here and enjoying this afternoon and this first webinar. I think many interesting ideas has popped out from this webinar that we will need to think about as researchers, as practitioners, and even though as multilingual entities, right? So I think that there are important issues now that we need to think about, maybe rest and then try to take the lead to continue into projects, publications, and collaborations. In this sense, I would like to ask you for one issue before we leave, and it is that most of us are researchers, as Julie was saying, so it is very important for us if you can act as ambassadors in your own countries with practitioners, families, and people who may be interested on this area to join us, and so that we enrich and we grow up our network. Then, as I said before, we're planning for this year 2 more webinars, and we will give you more information very soon. And we will be delighted to hear from you any comments, suggestions that you may have, because this is something we construct all together. So you have any idea or you would like to take the lead helping us on any issue, please contact us, and we will really be happy to hear from any of you. And just a very tiny thing, if any of you would like a certificate, you can also send us an email and we will issue a certificate for attending this webinar as well. So I think this is basically all. Thank you so much. Thanks to our lovely experts. Thanks to all the people who was here. And we were really looking... Yeah, thank you. I was going to say this. Thank you very much to the team who is here and who is also not present today because they have different obligations who couldn't be here. But if you could now raise your hand or something. We have Julie Waddington, who will be in charge of PhD students and encouraging research among PhD students. We have Anna Ndugar. Anna, could you please raise your hand so that they can see you? She will be in charge of secretary issues of the network. We also have around here Natalia. Natalia, where are you for the conference? We can, oh, there she is. I think she will be in charge of the future conferences. I'm not sure the rest of the team is around, but you will be meeting them in the following. And Sujud, where is Sujud? Oh, Sujud, I couldn't see you. Thank you so much for all your hard work. She is assisting us and helping us in constructing the website and in all administrative issues. So if you contact the email, she will answer you very quickly. And any of you is welcome to our network and to our executive team. So if you would like to help us, it will be a real pleasure. Thank you very much, Mila, for engaging in these crazy ideas that we usually have. And
thank you, Bea, Beatriz, and Cortina Perez.
No, thank you to all of you. Okay, so a very big applause to all of you, and looking forward to meeting you again.
We are staying, Bea, we are staying with the same link.
Yeah, electronically and physically in very short time. Okay, kisses to all of you. See you.
Julie, Natalia, Anna, Bea, we are staying. Thank you. So, Judy, if you can.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you so much. Mila, could you stop recording?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just a moment.